Go ahead.
All righty. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. We're happy to have you. Um, this is going to be a fun class for you. I hope it's at least going to be meaningful in letting you know all the things that you can do with your instrument that you may not be doing as of yet. But before we do that, why don't we get started with some music? There's a little pedal aerobics as well. Gosh. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. The
That
little
looked like a
Cherokee
good
there.
exercise there. Yeah.
You what?
That looked like a good exercise there
Oh
too.
yeah, that's pedal aerobics. If you do that, then you can have dessert.
Eh,
Even though I don't eat dessert, but that's okay.
I'll eat it for you. It's okay.
Okay, great, Sean. Thanks. All right, so today I'm going to talk about a topic that really doesn't get covered very often, and it applies from everybody from an easy one all the way to an aria. And the topic is bass. And if you have no musical training up until entering this hobby, you may not really understand even what the bass is. So we're going to start with the basics here and explore that. In any song, there are four elements that make up the song. And what would the most obvious element be? Somebody shout out.
Melody.
Melody, absolutely. Great answer. That's the most obvious. And then we have the accompaniment. That's the band all behind us. It's making us sound great, like an orchestra. And then we have the drums, right? The drummers. And then the last thing we have is a bass. And without the bass, it comes up, I guess the word is hollow because the bass grounds it. A chord is three notes, even though we only play one. The chord being played is three notes. And in addition to those three notes, there's a bass sound that's played, typically the name of the chord. So if you don't have the bass, then you don't really have a complete chord. So I want to show you, I'm going to go here to my easy button for a minute. And now what you're hearing now is complete easy with the three note chord and the bass. If I take out, now all you hear is the bass. And this is what the bass sounds like. So that very bottom that you're hearing, That's what the bass is. And I like to talk about that for a moment because I don't like to assume anything, because some people come into the hobby and they don't know anything about music, and that's okay, because the first thing I tell people is you don't have any bad habits, so that's a good thing. But the bass is a very important part. The bass sort of keeps the beat for us when we're using the background, even more so than the actual drums. They do it too, but the bass really helps us out in that department. And bass, what I mean by bass is it's typically an upright bass. And Joe gave me a great example yesterday. Picture it being a huge fiddle, you know, a stand-up upright bass that they play. So that's what the bass is. And we can do a lot of different things with the bass. And I'm going to show you a moving bass for a minute. Let me just go over here and pull up a rhythm for us. This is a guitarist rhythm that I'm going to use. Let's see, here it is. Now, if I take out the strummers, here's your bass. So you can see the bass is beating the way it normally would. We don't hear it as much because we're paying attention usually to the background instruments instead. So you don't necessarily pay as much attention because it kind of blends in. But it is the bottom of the music. It's the bottom of the chord, and it's very, very important. And we can do a lot of things with that. So let's start out talking about the easy 1, 2, 3, 4, SD Discovery 3, and SD Freedom 3. None of those instruments have pedals. So why? Why don't we have pedals on those instruments? Well, the answer to that is because the bass is actually built in. And so the bass is being taken care of and played within each rhythm background that you hear. They're known today as music styles, and the bass is being taken care of. It chooses what type of bass you can have. And I'm going to get to it a little bit later, but you can change the bass sound to any sound that you have in your instrument. And I personally prefer to do that because here's an example. If I'm playing Fiddler on the Roof music, I want to have a string bass because I'm going to be using strings. I don't want an electric plucking bass sound. If I'm going to play honky tonk music, I would change the bass to a honky tonk so that I hear a piano background on the bass. So you have the ability to do that. If you have the ability to change your bass. If your bass is built in, it's going to be selected for you depending on which music style you choose, and that's okay too. The benefit of those beginner instruments is really about having it selected for you, and it's something that you don't have to make a choice on. The limitation is you can't make a choice on it, but that's okay because when you're new, you're just starting out, you want as much help as you can get. Once we get to the Easy 10, now that is the first instrument that has pedals. And from there on up, the Fanfare, the Journey, all those instruments have pedals. But who wants to learn bass pedals? Can you wave your hand to me if you want to learn how to play the bass pedals? There's usually 1 in 100. I see 1. Okay. Most people say, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to use them. And actually, we had an example of a customer who called up and said that they wanted to sell their pedals. They wanted to get rid of them because they didn't use them. Well, there's a lot of reasons to use your pedals, and playing bass pedals like you saw me do in the opening that I did, that's only one thing that you can do with the pedals. We can do so much more than that it'll do for you what you don't have to do. And that's one of the things that I really want to talk about. When we talk about the bass being important, Oscar Peterson, when he had his choice between a drummer or a bass player, he would always opt to have the bass player, not the drummer, because he knew that that bass player would go right along with him and keep the beat at the same time. So if it's great for Oscar, then I think it should be great for us too. What the instruments will do for you, I think, is extremely important. And the reason is because it's going to do what we don't have to do. So I want to be able to show you some of that today and try to teach you how to get using your pedals. First is be aware that you can always change your bass sound. But the second thing is, if you're not going to play bass pedals, you can still change your bass sound. And that's an important thing to remember. Now, on most instruments, upper end instruments, you have a button that's called Pedal Genius or Pedal Sounds on the newer instruments. And it's generally a tab. Incidentally, I checked from yesterday, and it is Pedal Sounds is a tab on the Aria. And so most people, if I ask them about that tab, I say, so do you use that? And they say, oh no, I don't play pedals. Well, it really doesn't have anything to do with you playing the pedals. The bass is going to be automatic. But what sound comes out of the bass is a different story. And when you change the sound to what you want it to be, it's now going to come out of the automatic bass. You don't have to play the pedals. So that's one thing to remember. That's really important, because just changing a sound can make, as you know, a huge difference. Let me just pause there, because I kind of gave a lot of information, and I want to see if there's any questions. We had a lot of questions yesterday. Any questions?
So far, so good, I guess.
Let me say this, was everyone aware that they could change their bass sound? No. Okay. So yes, you can.
No.
With the exceptions of the first instruments that I named, Easy 1, 2, 3, 4, and Freedom 3, and the Discovery 3. Yes. Other than that, you can change the bass sound. So that's something good to know, because there's a good reason to have a different sounding bass. On a lot of the rhythms that Bill Curry has designed, oftentimes what comes on is some kind of an electric plucked bass. And depending on what style of music you're playing, you don't always want to hear something so what I call plucky. And so that's a really good reason to change that sound. But there's a lot of other things you can do with the bass as well. Starting on the Easy 10, the bass pedals get used for a different reason. One option is you could play the pedals, but the other option is glide and sustain. So you can put on glide on and sustain on the pedals, and then all you have to do is touch it and it will do the glide for you. Now, the benefit of that is a huge benefit, because most people are not enthralled with the kick switches inside the expression pedal at all. You go to kick it and you let go too soon, or the volume floors and gets too loud, or there's lots of things that happen. So people are not overly fond of the kick switches. Once we got to the Easy 10 now, okay, we can do the glide by just stepping on any pedal. And what happens is the glide, as I work with people on help sessions, their glide becomes much smoother and much more professional sounding, because they use their foot. So they'll hold it a little bit longer and then let go, and it bends the pitch back up. And people start sounding much more professional because of that. Once we get to the fanfare, now we can put the fill, or if yours is called the FX, we can put the fill on the pedal. That means that all I have to do is step on a pedal and it'll do the fill. Now this is a very interesting thing that I found out working with people, because when people want to use the fill and they kick their foot switch, and if they happen to kick it on the third beat, they get a fill of only one beat and it goes away. Once I discovered helping them use the pedal, your foot naturally will stay on the pedal a little bit longer. So now you're utilizing the fill and hearing more of it. You can even take an extra measure if you keep your foot just down on any pedal. And so that's very valuable for being able to use the fill. With the regards to the glide being on the bass, that's an important issue for me, because when we play Hawaiian music or fiddle music, or we play Tommy Dorsey's trombone, that's not realistic if you don't have a slide trombone. Hawaiian music, you're not going to not hear the glide. And so what happens is people can't really use the kick switch, and so they ended up not using the glide or the sustain, and therefore you're missing part of what will make your music sound really, really authentic. So I'm going to show you a couple ways to do that, but I think it's very important, and it was a great revolution with the technology the way it is, that we were able to finally use these pedals without having to learn to play the bass pedals, but they do things for us. So that makes them invaluable now. So the benefit of not having pedals when you're a beginner is that the bass is taken care of for you. Having pedals as you move up in your hobby is that now you can use those pedals as a tool to help you and to make you sound more professional and more authentic. Are there any questions so far? This is a brilliant and very quiet class.
Or you're just on a roll and everybody's learning so much, they don't have any questions.
Well, that's great. So I'm going to give you an example of the glide. Let's come over here for a minute. And we're going to use the glide to make it sound as authentic as we can. So I'm going to go to, let's see, I'll go to my big band category and I'll just pull up a little clarinet. So that sounds like a very authentic clarinet because you're hearing that glide. Now I was using the foot switch, and most people say, I just can't get it. I hit my key, then I hit the glide. No, that's not the way you do it. You have to hit them simultaneously at the same time and then let go of your foot, but don't let go of your key. So it's a little coordination thing going on there that not everybody can appreciate, and I get that. Now, once we put it on the pedals, now we have a whole new topic because we just step on the pedal and glide it. And I'm going to do that for you right now. I'm going to go to my feature clear button, and I'm going to go to page 9, I'm sorry. And I'm going to go to what's called pedal natural black and touch it. And maybe we can zoom in here a little bit. So on my pedal natural, I'm going to have the glide on. Are we getting the screen? Yeah. and underneath it, it says pedal controllers, and you have to make sure that you turn that on so that it will work. Now, the next thing is, if you're on a mid-sized to larger instrument, make sure you check that your pedals off button is not off. It's got to be on so the pedal will work. So now when I do it, we're gonna try to zoom to my foot, and I'm gonna use my foot and glide just like I was doing before. So I think it's foolproof, truthfully. It's automatically much smoother. It goes fine, and it's not a technique that you have to learn when you're using the kick switch for the glide or even for the fill, but more so the glide. It's a technique you have to learn how to use, and sometimes you get it right on, sometimes it's a little shaky, but using the pedals as that function of the glide makes it almost foolproof that you will sound great every single time. That's what we call technology enabling us to do that. For years and years and years and years, if you couldn't play the bass pedals, they just sat there, and we hope occasionally you dusted them. But other than that, they didn't get used. But now that we have all this capability to use them for things to help us, now they serve a very important purpose. So I'm going to pause for questions, please.
Joanie,
Yes.
if you're using this feature, is it only good for one thing at a time, like just a glide or just a fill? Or can they be used like a glide on your black pedal and a fill on your natural pedal?
Very good question, and we're going to get to what all it can do in just a minute. You're just about a half a lesson ahead of me.
All
Great
right.
question. And the short answer for you is yes, you can.
Joanie,
Yes.
you talked about page 9, getting to page 9. Can you go back a bit?
I can't really hear you. Could you speak more into the microphone, please?
Okay. You talked about starting from page 9
Yes.
and getting to the, can you go back on that a little bit for me, please?
Sure. Sure. You go to the feature clear and you scroll
Yeah,
to page 9.
yeah.
When you get to page 9, it says dynamic keying, it says touch bar, then it says foot switches, and then it says pedal natural black.
Yeah.
You touch pedal natural black, and up on the screen comes on the left pedal natural, and then on the right pedal black.
Yes.
And then you highlight the box, touch the box, and then scroll.
Which
And
box?
if I put it to glide sustain, then all my pedals are going to be glide sustain. Doesn't matter which one you step on, anyone will do it.
Can you go back a bit, Joanie? After you see these two things, pedal natural and pedal black, which one do you press?
Well, I tell people to use the natural because the pedals are longer. They're the long pedals. Pedal black are the little pedals. So it's easier for your foot to just step out and be on a natural pedal because they're longer.
Okay, can you continue then from there?
Yeah, where am I going?
Pedal, how do you get the sound?
How do I do what?
How do you get the glide?
So
You have to follow through.
when I play the key, I step on the pedal. I'll do it here. what you really want to do is do it at the same time. Because a natural glide does not do this. That's not natural. Together, we press the two, our foot on any pedal and my key, and then I let go of my foot. And that brings the glide pitch up.
Joanie,
Yes.
Joanie, you skipped a step. I think she's talking about. You've got to scroll through till you get to glide.
Yes, you do.
Yes, and if you don't do that, then you don't have the glide.
That's right.
So that's a step you've got to take.
And that step is included in what I'm going to talk about today is on most of the upper end instruments, especially, there are 21 functions that can be applied to your natural and black pedals. 21 functions is a really big deal. The glide is just an example. The fill is very important because then you can just step on it. And what I have found with people on the fill, which I think it's just really neat to watch the progress of what technology will help us with. People are using the fill more, especially in the case of people feeling like they had to reach up and touch the button. So you didn't get much of a fill. But now that you can just step on a pedal and get the fill, now people are using it much more frequently. And why not use it? Because the fills are tremendous and they make a sound awesome. So if I want the fill now, I'm into my pedal natural black and I've highlighted the function that it has. And now I go to fill and now it's going to do the fill. So let me go here and get some, here we go. And I'm going to step on the pedal, as you'll see, and you'll hear the fill. So much easier, and you'll frequent it more often because it's so convenient to do it. So that's a really important function. And I just want to say a word about the function. In a minute, we're going to show on the screen the 21 functions, and take note because the functions are not described in every single manual. I don't know why. I didn't write the manuals, but in some manuals they don't list what the functions are, but you have as many as 21 functions that will work with it. And these are all things. And the first thing, I don't know about you, but I'm like not a techie, so to speak. So when I hear the word function and then next to it, it's going to say control function. In my mind, I would say, I don't really know what that means. And I'd probably just go on and ignore it. But once you find out and understand what it is and how it can help you, it will be a very important thing to you. So out of the 21, Sean, if you could put that control functions up, just ignore the word function and in your mind, just rename it. This is things it can do for me.
I'm going to show a couple of things real quick since we had a couple of questions on what you were looking at on the screen.
Sure.
This will be a little easier to see. This is in your feature menu. She was on page 9 there. See how it gives all these different options? And that one she's talking about, it says pedal natural black. That's an option on your feature menu. And when you click on that, you get different sort of functions you can do that look like this. That says foot switches, but you can, there we go, that's better. You can assign different functions to separately the natural pedals or the black pedals. So they're two separate things that you can make them do. So what she's saying is she put the glide on the natural pedals. So you just touch that blue button there, and then you scroll up and down until you see glide. And then you just make sure and you touch that on button there, or how it says off right now. You want to touch on, and then it'll turn it on. So I just wanted to show that for a second, just so you
Yeah,
can
that's
see it a little
great.
bit closer.
That's
But
great.
the other thing she's talking about here is this is the list of all the things that you can make it do. So that was just a couple examples. She talked about the glide and sustain, but look at all these different things you can make the pedals do for you.
Now, you won't use every one of them, but it is kind of important that you decide what you could use that would really help you. Um, we have way more options than we need, and I don't use them all either. But glide sustain is a great one. The fill or FX, if you will, that's a great one. Also, start stop. If you want to stop in your song for a minute to get that silence for a minute and then come back in, you put on start stop on the pedal, scroll to that, start stop, and touch the pedal and it will stop and then it will come back in again. So that's a great one for people to use. Another thing is, so what we want to do is we want to eliminate you having to touch buttons as much as possible. And even when you finish your song, you have to reach up and touch the ending, intro ending button to make the ending activate. Well, I know a lot of people, and I've seen it in help sessions, but I know it's even more prevalent at home, is they'll start to play their song and they won't use the intro. And then when they finish the song, they just push stop. Well, you're part of that orchestra and you want to be part of getting the last word in, so to speak, or the last note. And so using the ending is very important, but you don't have to reach up and touch it because you can have it applied on your natural pedal because it's longer. And then when you're ready for the ending to activate, you touch that pedal and the ending will come on and you never had to raise your hands and touch buttons. And that's the idea that I'm trying to get across to you today is there's so many things that can help us that we don't have to do anything for it. This has nothing to do with your playing ability whatsoever. You could be brand new beginner, and if I happen to be sitting in a Prestige Plus right now, and a brand new beginner puts there, and I say step on that pedal, they're going to get an intro or an ending. So it has nothing to do with your playing ability. It just really has to do with how to use your instrument the best way. I've had people struggle with playing minor chords, like they couldn't remember the formula or they don't usually get it right. Well, you can play just the name of the chord and you can put minor on your pedals. And when you step on the pedal, it'll make a minor chord for you. How cool is that? You didn't have to know the formula. I love that. I just think that's so great. So these are the things that you can use. We have no chord. That's valuable to people. We have fake it. That's valuable to people. So there's all these things that you can actually put on your pedals. And yes, to go back to that original question, yes, I can assign one function or things it'll do for me on the black pedal and one on the natural pedal. So you can actually have two different functions. The only thing I'm going to caution you with that is you got to remember what you put where. And sometimes we forget. So, but I use the natural. I recommend people using the natural as much as they can because it's just such a really great helper. Looks like we have a couple of questions.
Yeah, let's start with Mercedes. You had your hand up a while ago. I just want to make sure. Did you still have a question?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, my question is this. I know how to use the glide and the fill maneuver on the pressure pedal, but I'm still unclear as to how I transfer that glide function to the pedals on the fanfare. Is it possible to do that?
Yes, it is. And what you're going to do is you're going to touch your pedal magic button, and then as you advance it, it goes. It's written on your screen, kind of down here on the panel, I should say, and it'll say fill. At first, it'll say glide sustain. And so once that light is lit and it says glide sustain, it is now on your pedals. If you go
Thank you.
to fill, same thing. If the fill's lit, now your pedals become the fill.
All right, and this is through the pedal magic button on the fanfare.
That's correct. And you just advance it till you get to where you want to be.
Yeah, all right. Thank you.
And that was the revolutionary great thing. I introduced the fanfare to Fletcher Music when it first came out. I was working for Lowrey at the time, and the fill and the glide, that was a huge fun thing because everybody got so excited about not having to use the foot switches anymore. What I had trouble with was pedal magic, because all you'd have to do is swing your foot and hit any pedal you want and it'll play the right pedal. It's magic. However, if you're a pedal player like I was, it was difficult for me to play a wrong pedal to make it sound like it was right. So that was a little challenging. But people who use it, they love it because they can feel like they're using their pedals, swinging back and forth with pedal magic. And again, it plays the correct pedal for you, whether you get it or not. Wonderful. It's magic.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. My pleasure.
Dennis, go ahead, Dennis.
On the Easy 10, can you use fill on pedals with the Easy 10 or only with a button or glide switch?
So on the Easy 10, you have the glide sustain feature. Okay. You do not have the fill feature.
Okay,
You need a fanfare.
gotcha.
I can help you. Call me. Thanks for your question. Anything else?
Yeah. Someone asked a question about, can you do this on the A300, the Holiday Classic?
Uh-huh.
And can either you or Sean answer that question?
Sean, can you get that? I couldn't quite make that out.
He asked if you can do this on a Holiday Classic as well. If you can change the features on the pedals.
And your answer is?
I'm not sure. I can look.
Okay.
I'll look while you answer
Okay.
some more questions. I'll go look at one. I'm pretty sure you can, but let me check.
I have a question.
We like to double check ourselves because we never want to give you incorrect information. And if I don't know something, I'll tell you I don't know. I can find out. That's not a problem. I always know how to find out. But off the top of my head, I can't. And actually, I'm looking at a Holiday Classic right there. So, Joe, why don't you check it out? Yes, a question?
Can you hear me?
I can now.
Okay, I have a fanfare and I know how to do the fill or the glide on the pedals, but you can't do them both on a fanfare?
No, either or.
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, to either or. Now, when we go further up the line, then we can assign to pedal natural, pedal black. But the fanfare just gave us this wonderful new technology to just have it on the pedal, one or the other, which we were very happy about.
And to answer the question on the Holiday Classic instrument, you cannot put these controls in your bass pedals. However, you can use your foot switches or your touch bar, and you can do all these things that we're talking about with those features as well.
So I focus mainly today on using the bass pedals, but the other places that you can assign these functions or things it's going to do for you is you have 2 foot switches and you have either 1 or 2 touch bars, and you can apply those same functions to any one of those places. So there's actually, on upper end instrument, there's actually 6 places that you can apply functions, which means you could have 6 different functions if you can remember who's on first. That's the only trick. You got to remember what you put where. Any other questions? I
Yes.
love the idea of using the ending on there because you don't have to do anything and you don't have to reach up and touch. You just touch the pedal and the ending will go when you're already playing, obviously. Yes, question.
If you, will Sean or whoever send out to us that on the materials, that list of the 21 functions?
That would be a Sean question.
Yeah, will he?
I can check and see if Robert has that, but because he's the one who helps send out most of the emails. But yeah, you'll most likely get it. Yes. Also, it is in your manuals, in the back of your manuals as well.
Oh, all right,
You
thank
do
you.
have a list of them.
It is in many manuals, but it is not in all manuals. Which
And David,
Yes,
go ahead.
Joanie, I guess I'm having a little bit of difficulty here with this. I'm playing on Liberty, and I've got the pedal natural black up. Pedal controllers are on. It's listed as glide and sustain.
yes.
Now, to get that then to glide, if you will, I should be able to push what, a C and a pedal, and let go of the C, and it should make a different sound. And that's not
Well,
happening.
the answer to that is yes. However, you have to have a glidable instrument on. In other words, flutes don't glide. You would have to have a trombone, a trumpet, a saxophone, a clarinet, a fiddle, instruments that can glide, Hawaiian guitar. So if you just have a flute on, you're not going to hear a glide. It's going to actually sustain. It'll
Got it.
sustain that, and it will sustain when you're using a piano. And people typically, when they play the piano, I didn't mention this yesterday, but when they use a piano sound, typically people do not use the kick switch or any other method in order to get sustain. Well, normal pianos are sustained. By being able to put it on the pedal, now you'll be able to make that piano sound very authentic because now you're sustaining the notes. And the instrument knows, the computers are so smart, it knows whether to be a glide or a sustain, depending on what sound you have on. So it makes that choice for you once you activate it. Any other questions? Okay. Well, I hope this helps you. This is, I believe this is a very, very important subject for you to explore, and you can explore it a number of different ways. You can explore it through a Zoom with your personal assistant, if you're able to go to the store and have a help session, but you should know what they do and get using it because they're all the things that are going to help you and make you sound better, not talking about your playing ability at all. So we can do a lot of ways to help you by phone, by Zoom, by help session, but you should definitely get with your personal assistant and then decide of the functions that you have, which ones are important to you that you're going to use. You're not going to use them all, but which ones could benefit you, and that'll give you even more clarity than you may have at the moment as well. Any other questions? Okay, Sean's going to do some announcements, and then I'm going to play a closing number for you, again, using the pedals. But what I want to tell you is don't get off the Zoom before Sean's done, because this next week's schedule is totally changing from what you're accustomed to. and we don't want anybody to be left in the dark. You are getting emails about it, but he's going to briefly tell you about it as well. So you want to pay real good attention to that so you know what's coming up next week. It's going to be a great week and a fun week. So we would really like you to take that in, and then I'll come back with a final number for you. And thanks so much for being with us today.
All right, so just a couple things for today. This week is a little bit different, or this coming week, I should say, because we are pushing everything we normally do out a week. So next week, we will not be having this Wednesday or Thursday variety class we normally do. Instead, we are having a big 2-day event. So we want you to call out of work or retirement and make sure you make it for those. So let me show you what we're doing here. You should have gotten an email, and it looks like this. Hopefully you can see that. I'll have some, can you guys nod your heads if you can see this?
Yes,
I
yes.
just want to make sure. Okay. It's on my screen. It looks a little weird. So it says Recreational Music Making Celebration featuring special guest artist Joe Fontesha. Musical journey from past to present. This guy is a multi-talented individual. He doubles as a cameraman as well. He's a professional cameraman that he's been helping Joanie behind the scenes this whole time. But he's wonderful, wonderful guy. We're doing actually as a team here 2 full days, October 13th and 14th. That is next Tuesday and Wednesday. And as you see on the bottom there, we've got several people getting involved with this. And look at this next page as I scroll down. We are giving away prizes. Who doesn't love prizes? I love prizes. I've never won a prize in my life, but you know what? I'm still trying. So look at all these neat things we're going to give away. We're going to announce those rules during the event. And here is kind of a schedule. If you look at the top, this is in your email as well, but look at the top, it says all times Eastern. So when you see those times, make sure you do the math. In Arizona here, 1 p.m., that start time should be 10 a.m. for us out here in Arizona. If you are somewhere in between, make sure you just know that this is Eastern time. We don't want anybody getting on at the wrong time. So it starts at 1 Eastern. Make sure you're there for that. That'll be really special. We have John Riley, our company owner, doing some announcements and kind of a history of recreational music making. Then we'll have Joe do a full concert, and we're going to talk about our giveaway. And after that, we are going to take a little break. So you don't have to be on Zoom this whole time. You can take a little break. And it says at 4 p.m. there, we are going to be doing workshops. So these, make sure you are in our email list. If you're getting emails, that is good. That means you're on our list. If you're not getting emails and you're only accessing this through our website, make sure you are also on our email list, okay? Because for these workshops, you're going to get a link in your email. The beginning, the concert part, you can get to from the website and email. But just make sure for the workshop, you know that that's only going to be in your email, because we are doing 3 separate workshops. So it says Joe, Carrie, and myself. We are doing 3 different workshops. That'll be one for more small-sized instruments, then one from the more intermediate size, and one if you have a touch screen, because we want you guys to learn something, get something out of it, and we all put something really great together. And then we're going to do it again the next day, except we're going to, the rest of us do sort of a concert as well. So make sure you take the time to be there for these events. We moved everything else out a week. So next week we won't have the normal events. We'll have Tuesday and Wednesday. Just make sure you're aware of that, okay? And this Friday, we won't be doing our regular time, Zoom musical that we typically do. This Friday, we're doing several different events for different people. Make sure you check your email for that. If you didn't receive one, just let us know, let somebody know, call your local store or me, call anybody and find out. But you should have an invite to a concert or presentation that we might be doing. So we're trying some different things. So we're experimenting. So That's all I have as far as announcements. I hope you're excited because we sure are. And Joanie has a fabulous closing number for you. Take it away, Joanie Monero.
Thank you. And thank you again for being with us.
Round of applause for Jody.
Thank you, Joanie.
Thank you, Joanie.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you, Joanie.
Great, Joanie. Enjoyed it.
Great job, Joanie.
Enjoyed the whole lesson.
Great. Thank you very much.
Very good
Thank you.
class.
Joe, feel free and jump in front of the camera. Get everybody excited for next week.
Yes.
Wave.
Yeah.
There he is.
Oh, thank you.
Don't miss our big event next week, all right? Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joanie.
Thank you, Joanie.
Good lesson, Joanie.
Thank you.